Hi, Neil here. I want to talk about the next section of our class, which is called normative ethical theory. Normative ethical theory is about our standards of right and wrong, good and bad, uh, obligations, duties, and it asks the question: what is it that we're doing when we use terms or saying when we use terms like good, bad, right, wrong? Um, I'm obligated. I'm obligated not to. And so we're talking about the foundations of those words and those terms and what they mean. I mean, what does it mean when we say, what are we doing when we say that something is good? Why is it good? Um, why are we obligated to do that? What sort of foundation does that have? And so this next section is going to be on what is called normative theory, normative ethical theory. And the first normative theory we're going to look at is called utilitarianism or utilitarian ethics. And we're going to look at probably two people, two moral theorists, the first of whom, his name is Jeremy Bentham. Uh, Jeremy Bentham was the founder of sort of the modern founder of this moral theory called hedonistic utilitarianism. You can find its roots, and Bentham was born in 1748. He died in 1832, and and we can find roots of his moral theory of what he's saying in probably Plato. For sure Plato, Aristotle, David Hume, and numbers of others. But Jeremy Bentham is the first one who put it together in a coherent moral system, or at least attempted to make a coherent moral system self consciously, given the ideas of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism doesn't come out of nowhere. And I mean, not only in terms of its core idea, but in terms of the kinds of ideas that were um, focusing or floating around, I should say, at the time that Bentham wrote. One of the things that's important to know about utilitarianism is that, and its founder, or really grandfather, I should say, Jeremy Bentham. One of the things that's important to know about him is that he saw himself as a moral reformer, a moral and legal reformer. He lived at a time when the legal systems were brutal and governments could pretty much do whatever they wanted to. I'm overstating this, but governments could do pretty much whatever they wanted to, and there was not a very good, and they were cruel frequently, these actions on the part of the government. And there was no very good way of critiquing the government or moral or legislative or political actions. And so Bentham went into his moral theory with the idea of trying to develop a standard of behavior and action that was capable of critiquing these arbitrary and actually aristocratic uh, governments that were at these times. Government basically was for the purpose of the wealthy elite, period. The general population had no say in it, was not asked, uh, was not really cared about. And so Bentham develops his moral theory as a way of critiquing and offering a standard for the governments of his time. And so Bentham's theory, utilitarianism, is developed as what is called a reformist moral theory. And Bentham's group that he founded is known as the group of philosophical radicals. And I should say here that the modern theory of government is pretty much based on many of the principles, many of the implied principles as well as stated principles of Jeremy Bentham. and sort of the theory of the liberal state. And I don't mean liberal here in terms of left-right liberal, but rather the idea of liberal state that individuals mattered and individuals counted, and that it was really the population that was the general population that was the target, or maybe I should say the goal of governments, and that's the liberal theory of government. Jeremy Bentham was the foundation of that theory, and if you, depending on what you read, you can frequently find him referred to. Um, so Jeremy Bentham lived in this age where he's feeling the need to critique the governments at that time, and he wants to develop Jeremy Bentham. He wants to develop a moral theory that is precise, complete, and simple. I mean, those are the principles that he's looking for. He wants precision, completeness, and simplicity. So he's working with that in mind. And what this does, he gets this idea of completeness, precision, and simplicity from one of the most important human discoveries. And there's an argument, I suppose, whether it's a discovery or creation. But whichever it is, one of the most important discoveries in human history that we somehow made, and that changed the intellectual climate, if I can put it that way. And that is that in Bentham was born in, as I said, 1832. In 1687, a tremendously important book, one of the most important books ever written in theories, was published. And that was a book that was written by Isaac Newton. And it was called The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, and published in 1687, about 75 years before Jeremy Bentham was born in 1748. So in this book, the reason why this book is so important and why Isaac Newton is so important, is because Newton discovered or created, and as I say, those are not quite appropriate, but he developed, perhaps I can put it that way, he developed and cultivated really the key to understanding the natural, the physical, the natural universe. And that key that unlocked the mysteries of the physical universe was mathematics. Newton figured out that if you develop your theories and formulas the right way, you can explain all of the physical phenomena in our universe. And that had never been done before. I should mention that Newton's work has been superseded by Albert Einstein's in the early 20th century, but built on Newton. Let me put it that way. So when Newton wrote this book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, Newton saw that the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe was mathematics. And what happened at this time, and also somewhat before it, I mean, Newton didn't arise out of nowhere, but what happened at this time, when that book was published, all the intellectuals pretty much knew immediately that Newton had altered our understanding of the universe, and by this development and application of mathematics. And Bentham, as were many others at this time, was inspired by this idea that mathematics could essentially unlock the mysteries of the natural or physical universe. Bentham was one of many working on the idea that perhaps mathematics could unlock the mysteries of what we might call the human universe or human behavior. And so Bentham developed a moral theory that in its essence was intended to be mathematical. And the goal for developing essentially a mathematical moral theory was that Bentham wanted a moral theory that was so precise that he could critique the government and political actions of his time and point out with certainty that they were doing something that was bad. In the same way that you can use a physical formula, one of Newton's formulas, to understand pretty exactly what's going on in the physical universe. So Bentham developed a moral theory that was mathematical at its root, and the goal being precision, but also precision, simplicity, and completeness. So this was Bentham's idea. I mean, this is the motive. He had a moral motive, if I can put it that way. He had a moral motive to develop a moral theory that would critique the horrible practices of the government of his time. But he had a mathematical or scientific inspiration to actually develop the theory methodologically. I mean, the method that Bentham used was mathematical. And what appealed to Bentham was essentially two major ideas in mathematical principles. Mathematical principles are built upon axioms, and they are essentially they express the measurability or the quantifiability of the universe. And so for instance, Bentham saw that Newton's theory was built on axioms. Axioms are what we might understand as self-evident principles. These are principles that are so clear that all you need to do is understand the terms in them, and you will automatically, your mind will agree to them. And so Bentham saw that these axioms were one self-evident principle constructed on another self-evident principle. If your system is founded in a self-evident principle, an axiom, the whole system then seems to stand on these self-evident and certain principles. And what I mean, I know this is abstract, and what the point of this is that Bentham wanted to write a mathematical moral theory, and that I'm not just making this up or speaking in generalities. I want to read to you one paragraph from from the reading that you've been assigned, and that reading is Jeremy Bentham's Morality is Utility. This is on the first page. It's in the right-hand column, and I'm going to read this to you. It's short, and as I'm reading it, I want you to think mathematics. So Bentham says, the interest of the community is one of the most general expressions that can occur in the phraseology of morals. No wonder that the meaning is often lost. When it has a meaning, it is this: the community is a fictitious body composed of the individual persons who are considered as constituting, as it were, its members. The interest of the community, then, is what? The sum of the interests of the several members who compose it. Bentham is talking about one of the most important ideas in ethics and government. That is, what is the community interest? We hear it all the time now. This isn't the community interest, that's against the community's interest, and so on. And Bentham thought that there was an axiom about the community interest that was so clear and precise that it would help found his moral theory. So Bentham says the community interest is the sum of the individual members who compose it. And so you want to know what the community interest is, count what is in the interest of the individuals. Essentially, that's Bentham's idea. But the point here is that it's mathematical. It reads like math, and Bentham intended it to be math. So one idea, one application of this methodology for Bentham is developing not mathematical axioms, but moral axioms, moral principles and legal principles that are so clear and precise that they are self-evident. They need no evidence outside themselves except the understanding of the terms for people to agree with them. The second idea of mathematics that Bentham found very appealing is the second one, and that is that mathematics deals with measurable quantities. So Bentham wanted a moral theory that was somehow quantifiable, that was somehow measurable, that you could put together in a self-evident principle that could yield as its result an exact accounting. I mean, imagine we take all our moral controversies and legal and political controversies. Imagine we have a mathematic-like formula where we fill in aspects of that formula, we do the calculation, and then we come out with the result, with the product. And that's what we do. It's not up for debate because it's mathematics, it's self-evident, it's measurable, it's quantifiable. So the second thing that Bentham is looking for is a measurable aspect of human behavior, a quantifiable aspect of human behavior. And I'll let you have that thought for a bit. I mean, think about the question: what would be a measurable or quantifiable feature of human behavior? What would that be, or feature of human life? I suppose I could say. So Bentham developed this moral theory called utilitarianism in his version of it, and again, it is the first modern version of a theory that had kind of been floating around for many centuries. But he developed this moral theory, hedonistic utilitarianism, that Bentham thought would allow for exact calculation of our moral behavior. And so what Bentham does is he develops this view that human beings are like machines, and we are to be mathematically understood and mathematically adjusted. The best person, or the good person, is one who calculates well. The best person is the person who calculates morally the best. What gives us the tool to do that is this idea that human beings, that our behavior can be reduced to self-evident axioms and to quantifiable or measurable features. So when you read Bentham's theory, I'm looking off to the side here because my notes are here, and I do want to make sure I get to everything. So when you think about Jeremy Bentham's moral theory, as you're reading this, think that he's writing math. Now, I don't want to frighten you. I know many people are frightened of math. And unfortunately, this first reading by Jeremy Bentham, Morality is Utility, is frightening. I mean, there are words and phrases. Bentham's writing is in Old English, sort of an old, antiquated English. It's actually been smoothed out for this particular excerpt. The excerpt is not long. It's about 2.5 or 3 pages. But you will see, as you read it, that what Bentham is doing is wanting to develop a precise, complete, simple, exact moral theory that is based on mathematics. Why mathematics? Because Newton had shown, without a doubt, that mathematics was this most powerful key to understand the universe. Bentham is inquiring, can we use mathematics to understand the human universe? I'm going to leave it at that for now, and you'll have some assignments that go along with this, and I'll see you one way or the other.